All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to From CA to Top Management Consulting. Let's get started. All right, guys, thanks so much for making time this afternoon. Can everyone see me okay? I think so. Just want to make sure we've got the right speaker view. Cool. Guys, welcome and thank you very much for making time this afternoon. I just wanted to firstly welcome you all to management consulting, learning exactly what management consulting is all about. And how management consulting can really leverage your career as a CA. We've got a really awesome group of attendees today, and I'm very excited to have everyone on here, as well as some great panelists. My name is Graham Murray. I'm a CA, I'm an ex-management consultant, and I'm co-founder of Blue Recruiting. For those of you that don't know, Blue Recruiting, we're a finance and CA specialist recruiting business. And our objective is to try and assist young CAs with the ability to be able to find the best job and best career path that you possibly can. We're very fortunate to be partnered with the Joburg Article Clerks Association, JACAS. So thank you for JACAS for your support. And we've hosted a whole bunch of webinars for JACAS just to be able to try and educate the young CAs about what the various career paths are. And we'll be hosting in a month or two time, just what else do CAs do? But we constantly get young CAs coming to us and asking us, we understand financial management, we understand financial analysts, we understand what external auditing is, but what else is there? What else do we have that we could possibly consider? And management consulting is possibly a path that you may not have considered before. And personally, I can't recommend it enough. As I mentioned, I'm an ex-management consultant myself, and the amount that I learned in those 3 years post-articles in my management consulting experience, it cannot be compared to anything else. I really do think it shifted gears for me from a standard CA to someone who could really understand and face challenges probably better than I did before that. But we're going to hear a lot more about that firsthand from our partners, Monocle Solutions, who they've offered us some of their team to join us this evening, who can give us a firsthand account of what management consulting really is. I think a lot has changed in the last 10 years. But I'm briefly going to just introduce you quickly to the panelists that we have, or just who we have on board. And then I'm going to flick over to Yaku, who's the CFO. So firstly, Yaku is CFO of Monocle. He's going to introduce firstly what what management consulting is all about, what the various aspects of management consulting are, and we'll focus a bit about how management consulting can really supersize your CA. Then there's also Patrick. Patrick heads up people and culture at Monocle. He's going to be answering a couple of questions about what kind of person is right for management consulting. It's not for everyone, but it's for the right person, it's absolutely the right spot. So he's definitely going to be able to speak a little bit about the right kind of personality, the right kind of fit for management consulting, as well as what the culture is like at a place like Monaco. Then we've got three, no offense, Yaku, but CAs who look a little bit more like most of our attendees out there. We've got Melissa, and we've got Ntlantla and Karabo. All recently qualified CAs who've changed their path to join management consulting. And I think we're going to have a really nice, frank conversation with all three of them to be able to really understand their take. And I'm going to ask them to be as honest and to the point as we possibly can about what led them to management consulting and what they love and maybe don't love about management consulting. So let's jump straight into it. If we can, Yaku, please won't you take the floor a little bit, explain to us a little bit about who Monocle is and what consulting is all about.
Yes, thanks, Graham. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. So maybe just a brief intro to myself. I'm Jaco van Buren Schiller. I'm the CFO of Monocle Solutions. I joined Monocle 16 or 15 years ago already. So when it was a small little startup firm. And the reason why I went the route of Monocle is I came out of medium-sized audit articles. I wanted to move into banking and I wanted exposure to banking. So I joined this cool startup firm that did some nice work in banking to get exposure. And then I fell in love with the concept of management consulting, the concept of driving change for banks and insurance companies. And that's sort of the main reason why I've stayed, because I love the potential in the work that I do. Now, just a brief introduction to Monocle, and then I want to talk a little bit about what we do as a company, but then also tie it to what management consulting is. I think there's a lot of misperceptions around what management consulting is and what it isn't. So I just want to clarify some of that. And then lastly, I would like to go into the future of finance and why it is so important for us as CAs to upskill ourselves in more than just IFRS and tax and financial management. So lastly, I'll just go into that. So firstly, Monocle, who we are, we're a management consulting firm. Like I said, we've been around since 2002, started out in South Africa. We've got offices in Johannesburg, Cape Town, London, and more recently now in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So we work internationally and we focus primarily on banks and insurance. Now, management consulting is a broad term. And again, I think many people associate management consulting with the sexy type stuff, right? It's the strategy consulting and it's the dealing only with CEOs and top level people. That's not who we are. Although that is also management consulting, that is strategy consulting. And the difference is that they do management plans and revenue optimizations and a variety of sort of workforce planning strategies. But they rarely ever move into the implementation thereof. So they deliver a document and a proposal and recommendations, but that then becomes the responsibility of their client to implement. So you also get another type of management consulting, and that's more often referred to as the SIs, or the system integrators. So they do large-scale technological development and implementations, system implementations. That's also not what we do. So what we as a company do, and maybe if I can just share my screen for a second. So what we as a company do is firstly, we're in banking and insurance, and we execute change. And we execute change for our customers in 7 different sort of areas in which we've defined as our core expertise and capabilities. So the first is finance, risk, and regulation. So that's the concept of implementing new IFRS statements, IFRS 17, IFRS 9, or around risk and regulation, Basel 4, Basel 3, various of the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision type regulations. It also involves the integration of risk and finance, so bringing the two worlds together so that they speak to one another. Then business change and cost transformation. So often our clients need to rationalize their systems. They need to trim down on some of the deadwood that they have in their infrastructure, and they need to transform their business to an optimized, more cost-efficient one. So we get very much involved there. Market conduct and compliance. So there we're talking about anti-money laundering, POPI, customer tax reporting, stuff like FATCA and some of the older stuff. Data and technology. So we assist our customers to become world-class at data, to bring in new technology, new governance processes, and new capabilities around data. Digital enterprise transformation, becoming very important in the banking and insurance world. So that is helping our customers to digitize and modernize their processes and move them into the cloud. It's a big focus. Financial markets operations. That is speaking to the trading and financial markets divisions within banks and also some insurance firms. And that's where we help to streamline and automate and really optimize the back end processes, so the back office and the middle office processes for the front office trading areas. And then lastly, but not least, customer centricity, a very important topic in banking and insurance. So that's helping our customers to get a better view of the customer and a better understanding of the customer, its behavior, basically its value of that customer to the firm, and allowing our customers to price more aggressively and more advantageously for new customers. So that's at a high level what we as Monocle do. But I'm guessing that most of you are saying, but still, what do you do on a day-to-day basis for your customers? So this is how I explain it to some of the younger people that I often interview, is that our customers, being the banks and insurance companies, have a need for change. And that need for change is driven by many different factors. It's either regulatory, so Basel IV that's coming along, or many other regulatory requirements, or it's statutory, so there are legal requirements. There's also financial statement requirements, so IFRS 9, IFRS 17, IFRS 16, and a variety of others. There's optimization, so they might have suboptimal processes that aren't running like they should, or that are not cost effective. Or modernization, again, speaking to the cloud journey and the digitization. So changing old, outdated infrastructure to be modern, to withstand sort of the new requirements in terms of data and change. Then also restructuring. We often see changes in reporting lines or banks buying divisions of other businesses. Those kinds of things require implementation work and change work within the organization. So this list is by no means exhaustive. This is just sort of an indication of the change drivers for our clients. But what we then do is we come in, and again, this is quite a high level view, but we analyze what needs to be done. We analyze the change that's required. So we look at what the required end state is, and we say, well, what is the gap between what you're doing at the moment versus where you need to be? Then we design the bridge to cross that gap. So we design the change. So we say, well, in order to get to point Z, you need to do the following 50 things in order to get there. We socialize the design. I think that's quite important. So we don't work on our own in the corner somewhere in our office and then go to the client and deliver a solution. We collaborate with our clients. We work hand in hand. We socialize and we make sure that there's buy-in, and we take guidance from them, and we provide them also with guidance. We then often develop the solution, not into production, and I think that's quite important. We're not the system integrators. We develop to the point where we can give it to a developer to optimize the code. We test and we refine the solution, and then lastly, we embed it into the organization. So the embedment is a very important part. It's the change management part. It's getting our customers to take ownership of it and to train them on the solution and to change the processes around it so that it incorporates the changed solution or end artifact. And then what we regard as implemented is basically when it's optimized, automated, compliant, and most importantly, when it's internally owned. So we don't do business as usual work. So we don't do the run the bank or run the insurance company type work. We only do the change work. And it's very important for us to find somebody to hand it over to so that they can own it going forward. So that's a little bit more deeper into what we do as Monocle. An important part is sort of how we do this. So our recipe is that we combine certain rare skills. Now, the rare skills are firstly subject matter expertise. So we're looking for people that knows finance, knows risk, knows quantitative modeling, for instance, but that also knows banking, that knows insurance, that knows banking and insurance products, that knows how the divisions within these organizations speak to each other. What does the treasury division do? What does the risk and capital management division do? And how do they interact, for instance? But also then very importantly, people who are willing to learn and delve into sort of the regulations and the accounting requirements. So when IFRS 17 came along, nobody knew it. It's a new statement. But our people had to study it and get very comfortable with that particular accounting statement. Same goes for Basel IV or any of the others. Then we're also looking for deep technical skills. Now, very rarely do we find somebody who's got the technical skills as well as the subject matter expertise. We hire the subject matter expertise. We also train on it, but then we develop the technical skills. And those technical skills are coding skills in a variety of languages: business analysis, data analysis, data modeling, etc., etc. So it's all those hard skills that's needed to implement a solution around risk and finance in banking. And then lastly, we're looking for people with a strong delivery capability. So people with a proven track record of success. And when we bring those three components together, when we get to develop a person to have all three of those components, we think we've got something extraordinary. A person who is able to take on any project in any organization and drive it and make a huge success of it. And that's basically what we're advocating for CAs as well, is to say that the subject matter expertise around finance is great. Your ability to deliver is proven because you're a CA. But sometimes the technical skills needs to be enhanced to be more future-proof. And the future-proof part is what I also want to discuss now is what does the future look like? How do you become future-proof as a CA? And I've summarized it in a few points. So firstly, there's no doubt that the volumes of data are increasing exponentially, and that they will continue to increase exponentially over the next 10, 12, 15 years. That has an enormous impact on how banks and insurance companies and any other firm for that matter operates, because they need to extract the value from the large volumes of data that they're getting. Finance itself, the concept of CAs and financial managers manually intervening between the transaction and the GL and the reporting is going to become something of the past. It's going to be straight through processing, not just through to the general ledger, and it's obviously happening already at many other firms, but also through to the financial reports and the annual financial reports. So it's going to make a lot of CAs uneasy as to what their role is in this end-to-end process. Secondly, robotics and AI. We believe that it's going to play a bigger and bigger role in the financial control within firms, especially when you look at reconciliations and matching type stuff and all those kinds of financial control actions that are required within finance functions. Self-service. So the days where you are, as a CA in a large bank, is going to be responsible for necessarily providing the input and providing the business insights will become diminished. Your clients, being your business owners, will themselves have access to BI and to the data, and they will themselves be able to go on and slice and dice and filter and get to the answers themselves without necessarily asking you. And it will become real-time information. So no longer will they wait for month end, 2 weeks after month end, to get a set of reports. As and when transactions happen, the financial view and financial reports of organizations will be updated. Then also reporting granularity. We see it already, and it's just going to become more prevalent, is that a lot of the banks and insurance companies now demand to see an income statement and a balance sheet at a customer level. And if you have millions of customers, that is not a menial task. Sometimes they want to see basically an income statement of profitability on a transaction, on a deal level, not just the customer level. So it's going to become more and more granular as time goes by. Again, placing more challenges in front of the future CA. Business partnering will become the main focus. I think this is very important. It's going to be partnering with the business to figure out what is it that they need in terms of information, and how you can put it in front of them in a sustainable self-service kind of way in order to drive those business insights. But I think the most important point that's not on the slide is that the divide between the finance function, its business, and IT is going to diminish and possibly disappear completely. So the days where we, as CAs, got a requirement from business for information, we went to IT and said, well, can you provide us with this data? If so, by when? Can you build the solution for us? And then 2 months later, go back to businesses and say, is this what you were looking for? And more often than not, it's not entirely spot on. Those days will be gone soon. The requirement will be for the CA to, him or herself, go into the data and get that insight. Intraday, in real time almost. And that's where those skills are necessary. That's where we as CAs need to be future-proof. Graham, that's my little part.
That's great. And just from my side, we have at Blue Recruiting, we've got a lens into what the demand is out in the market, guys. And Yaki's mentioned that data analytics and CA is like and IT, they're merging. And we're constantly being asked by our potential or our clients, who are your potential employers, for really strong CAs with data analytics, and that pool's shallow, guys. It's a shallow pool. So jump at every opportunity you possibly can to try and enhance those skills and make sure you're incorporating some IT competencies into your CA. I remember when I left being a CA, I could tick and bash the hell out of an income statement and balance sheet, but automation and data analytics and how to build a business, I didn't know that stuff. And this is a great environment to learn. I think an analogy for me about management consultants in general, like for the rugby fans out there, they're the bomb squad, the guys that come on at halftime in an environment that's not going well and go and fix it. And you're the fixers for problems that people inside their businesses can't solve themselves. It's hell of a challenging, and it's intellectually stimulating like you have no idea. But Yaku, a quick question for you is, like, coming from an environment where you might be an auditor or a financial manager, to then go from there to being the advisor that's going to tell a CEO how to run his business or change or implement a more automated system, that's a huge step. Like, how do I transition? Like, do you guys, what kind of training would a place like Monaco provide in it?
Yeah, good question, Graham. It is a transition. I think mostly people think it's very daunting and that jump is an insurmountable jump. It isn't. CA should not undersell the skills and the knowledge that they've picked up in the article years. Absolutely not. However, we as Monocle identify this, not just for CAs, but for others. And we've developed a full training syllabus around this. So we've got 2 full-time trainers, in our opinion, two of South Africa's best trainers on some of these technical skills. And we've got enough training to keep somebody busy almost full-time for 2 years. So we really encourage our staff, and especially the new staff, to get involved in those and get that training. That's A, so the training is very important. But B, it's like a TV game. Somebody can tell you how to play a TV game until the cows come home. But unless you do it yourself, unless you start working on it and getting the experience, there's no way that you're going to master the skill. So you need to get into an environment, in my opinion, where you're exposed to this, where you're thrown into the deep end, and where you now need to implement what you've learned.
Awesome, right? Thanks. And speaking of jumping into the deep end, Karabo and Tlantla and Melissa, let's throw you into the mix here. Let's get to the coal face of the guys who actually just transitioned from this sort of articles or traineeship. I'm using just as in the last 4 or 5 years. We've got Karabo and Tlantla and Melissa, a nice blend of experience between the 3 of them. So just a little bit of a breakdown as to where all of you guys came from. It's a nice combination. So Karabo did top articles at one of the big banks. And actually recently started at Monocle at the beginning of the year. So she's doing this transition and experiencing that awesome learning curve and training right now. So that's a great person to hear from on that transition. And Tlantla was in TIP, so audit article clerk, but then moved and went into the banks to work as a product controller. And so was kind of heading down that sort of financial manager role in a bank, and also moved into management consulting. And he's done incredibly well in a very short space of time. He's now an executive at Monocle. And then Melissa, which is quite nice, is someone who came virtually straight out of audit. So went on a short secondment, did audit in the financial services space, and then moved across to management consulting. So let's start. I want to hear from each of you guys, like, what made you think management consulting, and why did you end up going the management consulting route? So, Untitled, do you want to start and let us know about that?
For sure. Thanks for the opportunity, and firstly, welcome everyone. I think for me, the most important thing is that, one, you have to understand your personality, the type of professional that you want to be. Obviously, we're all CAs. In terms of intelligence and technical ability, in terms of efforts and application thereof, that's not a problem. But understanding where you fit in the larger scheme of things becomes a very critical thing. So when I went from audit into the banking, I realized that, first of all, one, I love people. I love being around people. And secondly, I love a different challenge. I don't want to do the same thing every single day. I want to be exposed to different scenarios, different challenges, and solve different challenges and provide different solutions. Mainly because as the world is changing around us, we have to change as well. We have to adapt. And the skills that were required from a CA even 5 years ago are looking completely different to what's required now, and will look completely different going forward. So I wanted that challenge. I wanted something that gave me, a good combo between the two. I'm a thorough believer in doing meaningful work, and a thorough believer in building meaningful relationships. So for me, joining Monaco, that was a perfect fit. I was able to, first of all, get into an environment where I was forced to learn quickly. And just to give you an example, my second project, I moved from product control, where we're doing mostly finance, recons, and a very important role within the bank. I come into management consulting, I'm thrown into a client, and the first thing that I have to do, I have to code. And mind you, this is very foreign to me. I'd never coded before in my life. And the first thing you realize is that if you're going to be in management consulting, you're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to have to keep on learning, because you're going to be challenged every single time. No project is the same. No stakeholder is the same. I've done projects from doing robotics process automation implementation to implementing changes because of regulatory requirements. So that challenge for me really keeps me stimulated. And another thing, I wanted a place that really has a culture that I believe, works with the kind of person that I am, which is what I've found. And I mean, I've been with Monocle for almost 5 years now, and no project is the same. And it's exactly what I had in mind, when I joined it. So if you're looking for a challenge, something dynamic, and something that's going to keep you on your toes, then definitely I think this is one of the best things that you could do for yourself. And I think the one more thing that I wanted to add, which is sort of what was specific to why one of the reasons I joined Monaco, is the training that is offered. It's very detailed, it's very extensive, and it's not just a focus on being able to code. Remember, everything that we do when we put a specific skill out, a specific training out, it's to cater for what our clients are actually demanding. The reason why we're doing what we are doing is because there is a genuine need from our clients, and we are able to meet that genuine need. So we don't learn for the sake of learning. We learn because there's value behind what we are trying to actually build. So yeah, I mean, that was a mouthful,
that's
but
awesome,
yeah,
oh, that's brilliant.
So yeah.
And your last point's great. Is like, is it the demand for the services that you provide, and you becoming, and in delivering it, you becoming an expert on not just one thing. And one thing you touched on just earlier is, like, a lot of our candidates come to us and say, like, they just don't want to do repetitive stuff. So a repetitive sort of recon at the end of every month. And I couldn't agree any more with you. There's zero repetitive with management consulting. And it's exciting. It keeps you on your feet. So thanks for that. I'll definitely come back to you on a couple of points you made there. Melissa, do you want to go next? I think that transition from audit directly into management consulting, maybe you can chat to us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, sure. So I came out of audit and I felt quite overwhelmed at the possibilities ahead. And what I ended up doing was I kind of sat down and I identified the parts of audit that I did enjoy, and that, very similar to Untitled, was very much a team environment. I loved working with different people, different ages, different backgrounds, and having that thing where you could balance on each other and assist each other. So the team was very important. And the same thing where you would move on to new projects, exposure to different areas of the banks, different divisions, didn't want to be pigeonholed into something and then get stuck there. So consulting was kind of an area that had the same attributes. But I think the difference, and what I didn't enjoy about audit, was the fact that you would do all of this work and go through all of that pain, then you'd identify, issues, and then you kind of walk away, and that was it. Consulting really gives you the opportunity to go in and get your hands dirty and fix what needs to be done. And that really appealed to my problem-solving side, where I really enjoy that challenge. I really enjoy going into the detail, figuring everything out, and then delivering on what you set out to do. So that's kind of what led me down that path.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an interesting thing. Again, just what we hear from a lot of our audit candidates is they just don't know where their career goes. And I'm convinced that the only people that know at that young age or what they want to do are maybe priests and doctors. And it's okay not to know, but to go and join a management consulting business where we just pose with different problems in different industries and different companies constantly. And we mentioned, Yaku mentioned all the capabilities just within your management consulting firm. You'll find your sweet spot and realize what you really, really like. And you'll have an opportunity to find that expertise. And I think that's really helpful. And I think, fixing problems as opposed to identifying problems, it was something that drove me nuts as an auditor as well. But that's great. Thanks, Melissa. That's very helpful. Garaba, you are right in the swing of things, coming straight out of your top experience in the bank. Tell me how's the transition been? I mean, it's fresh for you.
Yeah, it has been quite a steep learning curve. I mean, coming out of articles for 3 years at a bank and, rotating through different parts of the bank, and all you're doing is probably trying to do exactly what the team is doing and trying to better their processes. But I think I echo a lot on what Nhlanhla and Melissa have said about the different teams that you're collaborating with, the changes that you'd like to implement. A lot of the times that I found within my rotations was that I always suggested that, okay, guys, let's better the process in this way. Let's put together new technology or something along those lines. And unfortunately, then sometimes those things don't get implemented, or there's no budget, or it's just we don't have the resources to do so. And so for me, that then, because of the trend in all my rotations in wanting to implement some sort of change and bring those type of things to the fourth, I then decided that maybe consulting was the best space to get into. I think just before I started applying for jobs, I didn't really know much about management consulting as a type of consulting. And only then when I started doing my research and came across Monocle, then did I actually understand that this is the best fit for me in terms of the skill sets I'm trying to get and the work environment that I'm trying to do. I think a lot of the times, what I've actually realized during my rotations is that I didn't get to see the bank enough. And I didn't want to actually walk away from an environment where I didn't just sit in one role and I'm doing the same thing for about 10 years. I wanted to see different parts of the bank and basically implement change across the bank. And so that for me was then being able to still be in the financial services industry, get different skills, and actually to make an impact in that regard. And that's for me the best decision that I made, to actually leave banking and join consulting.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Nkara. I appreciate it. So I'm going to ask you guys what the hardest part of your job is in a little while. It's a tricky question, so just think about it for a second or two. But in the meantime, I just want to share something. So we at Recruiting, we conduct an annual survey with all our third-year trainees, just to really get an idea as to what is happening just what's happening in your heads as a third-year trainee. I know not everyone on your are trainees, but one of the things we've asked is what are the major factors that you take into consideration when considering your employment. And it ties into everyone what sort of up to 3 or 4 years post articles. But the ranking of what was most important are these 5 things. So personal growth, fulfillment, flexibility and life balance, and business growth, as well as remuneration. So those are the 5 major factors, and it really does help if you're ever starting to think about your career moves, guys. Just try and factor in how each opportunity scores according to those five factors. And I'm sure most of you guys would have joined gone the CA route to be able to personally grow. I don't think any of you would have done articles for the salary of a first-year article clerk. So that personal growth continues to be one of the most important factors. So I just wanted to just check with you guys, and you can maybe just talk me through it. So we speak about personal growth, and personal growth's got a couple of facets to it. I think it's qualification, it's learning on the job. It's also making sure next year your CV looks better and more impressive than it did this year. So maybe, Ntlantla, maybe looping back to you, I know that you've gone and done some extra qualifications, not only just coding, but extra qualifications over and above it. Why? And was Monocle supportive of that?
Thanks for that, Graham. So just to add some context, so one of the qualifications that I pursued post CA is the Sema designation, which is the Chartered Global Management Accountant. The reason that I did that is because it offered a very strategic view of looking at a business, and they tested it very differently. And again, that's one of the reasons why I joined, because Monocle is a Sema accredited training office, and it was basically, encouraged, and we encourage our people to always, keep on learning. The reason why that speaks to personal growth is because as the world around us changes, as I mentioned before, you need to be able to be relevant for that time. And we are able to predict what will be important, at least in the short term. And what that means is that we have to equip ourselves now, right? Which means that our lens of personal growth is not necessarily the career that you are choosing. It's also the industry that you are in. It's also the people that you are working around. It also speaks to not only the value that you are adding to your clients, it also speaks to a value that you are adding to the company that you're in and the person that you are. So when I pursued Sema, I thought it would be a really good sort of addition to my CA career. However, that's not the only thing that that is offered. We've got people that have come in and done FRM. We've had people that come in and study various things and various skills. So personal growth is very broad, but also at the same time, in its broadness, you have to be very specific as to the outcomes of it, right? So it's not growth for the sake of growth, but it's growth for what exactly? I'm growing because I want to add value to the clients. I'm growing because I want to understand a certain skill, because that skill speaks to the way that the future, is shaping up. That skill speaks to the way that our clients are moving. That skill speaks to the way that I communicate with my colleagues and the value that I add with my colleagues. One of them, for instance, is, we have various sports clubs that we do. I'm part of the soccer club. I joined the boxing club for a bit. I regretted it immediately. And then I jumped back to my first love, soccer. And what that tells you is that there's more to just, delivering on projects, but there's also the relationships that you build with the people around you. And we find that through sport, we find that through, socials, we find that it's a bit difficult now, obviously, with the current, global climate. But personal growth is really not just about, the skill that I'm learning or, where my career is going to go. It's really about how am I going to manage and maintain the relationships I have now while still adding value in my profession and my clients. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Melissa, Karaba, anything else? That's quite a comprehensive answer from Ntlantla. Either of you guys want to add to that?
Yes, sure. I think for me, personal growth also means the skills that you're then obtaining that you can immediately use on the project that you're on, which is quite important. I think coming from a traditional CA background, a lot of finance and regulatory reporting and all that stuff, you hardly have like the coding and the SQL type skills. So being able to use all of that knowledge from the training immediately onto your projects is quite key. So I think for me, that's what personal growth also means.
Awesome, thanks, Karaba. The next one I want to chat about is, one last thing just on personal growth. It's I think we also don't want to be in a situation where you're just a cog in the wheel and you don't see sort of promotion through the ranks. And I think Clint is a great idea. He probably won't talk to it, but Clint has been in Monaco for 4.5, maybe almost 5 years, and he's already escalated to a finance executive. So, sorry, a management consulting executive. So it really is the opportunity to grow as in profile in the company is huge. And you want to find an environment where you are going to be able to see a career progression.
Yeah. Graham, if I can also just add in on the personal growth. Sorry, I was on mute earlier. So for me, if I had to look back at who I was when I joined Monocle, I would not recognize that person. But I was never somebody to sit down and say, what are my personal growth goals and targets and chase them down. For me, it was because I got thrown into the deep end repeatedly on different projects, and every project was different, and every project had enormous challenges to solve. And for me, it was a do or die type thing. It's like, I need to figure this out. Otherwise, tomorrow I'm going to look stupid in front of the client. So just having that pressure and just being so far out of your comfort zone has, for me, given me enormous personal growth.
Oh, fantastic. Being comfortable outside your comfort zone, that's where life begins, I think. Yeah, awesome. Guys, just to finally remembered this, I've been reminding myself to do this. I see a couple of you guys popping some questions or some comments and questions in the chat. Please, if at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A. We're going to address all those Q&As. Patrick's having a look at all those questions there. We'll find the right time to be able to answer some of those questions at a convenient time. Don't worry, if you've popped your question or anything on chat, we will address them. But please, guys, think of questions, fire them in there, and at the right time, we're going to answer them. Jackie, thanks for that that little addition to it. Melissa, you're up next. I'm going to chat to you just fulfillment. So I think the opposite of fulfillment is boredom. And like what I mean by fulfillment is when you arrive at your virtual office at the end of your passage at the moment, but when you open that laptop and you start doing what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, like what do you feel? Do you love it? And maybe you can, and I'll probably ask the rest of you guys, like, give me an example of what it actually means. Like, what do you do as a management consultant?
Sure. No, it's definitely not boredom. And I think that's the best part of my job for me. So yeah, I started at Monocle about 3 years ago, and I had a month of training. And in that we did a lot of SQL coding. And my first project after that month, I was put onto a very technical coding project. It was incredibly interesting, but it was definitely super steep learning curve. We had to basically, the project was that one of the big four banks, the Treasury, submitted these BA returns for liquidity, and there were some audit findings regarding the returns being complete and accurate. So essentially, we came in, and Group Treasury gave us a
quick question, BA returns, what are BA returns?
Banking Act returns. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
So basically we came in and Treasury said to the investment bank, they said, this is the kind of information we need on a trade level. So essentially they took the entire balance sheet of the bank and broke it down into products. So every single product had to have a certain amount of information. And we then went in and we went into the source systems and identified where that information was. And a big part of it was then joining that back to the balance sheet. So, you know, your balance sheet is your source of truth. It's checked, you know, not once, twice, but 3 times. And we then used kind of coding skills to join things back and send that information through to Treasury. And a big part of that was building recons. So being the CA in the team, I was kind of given that responsibility. And for me, it was incredible because I was building recons using coding language. I mean, I was used to seeing a recon in an Excel spreadsheet, you know, some VLOOKUPs and that kind of thing. And now I was building a few pieces of code that would be able to be run as many times as we wanted within a day, and extract the information and provide exceptions in a really valuable way for the business users. Yeah, so that was a really interesting project. Another project I've been involved in was...
Sorry, I can just imagine you like picturing yourself 2 or 3 years ago talking about yourself coding, and you'd be like, never in this lifetime.
I know.
But I mean, how awesome that you can now be a coder, like, and you're using your CA and now tech. And I think like most of us don't think it's possible, but it is. And why shouldn't you be able to do it?
Yeah, and I mean, it was a steep learning curve, but now I feel very comfortable with it. You know, it's just, I think, as Yaku said, you have to actually go and do it at the client. You can't just like learn something. You need to go and use it in practice for it to become ingrained, which is awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Patrick, you're sitting on the wings there, and I haven't chatted to you yet, Patrick, so good to have you on here. I think I'm trying to chat a little bit about the other stuff that happens at Monocle, the activities, the fun stuff. Like, culture is critical for Monocle. Tell me, how has that played a massive part in the success of the business?
Yeah, evening, Graham, and evening to everybody who's listening and attending. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to Blue Recruiting for hosting Monocle tonight. We're obviously delighted to receive the invite, and for you guys, we obviously partner very closely to Graham and James, and to Lucy, who looks after our candidates so professionally. Thank you for that. And then secondly, yeah, look, culture plays a massive part, look, in any organization. And to be honest, I feel it's been one of the key components of our success in terms of growing organically the business in the last number of years, you know. Consulting isn't per se that we can say, look to our client, this is our product that we can sell, you know. Our product is our people. And to have an exceptional service, we need to have exceptional people. And, you know, consulting is not easy. And you can see from the panel there, you know, the trickiness in terms of day to day. I think if the emphasis, if you look back then at what Glenda said, you know, I always use the terminology BC before COVID. We had numerous amount of sports clubs. I think that there was like a list of 12 to 14 different sports clubs, from action cricket to, you know, to mountain biking, golfing, everything, action netball. And I think the greatness of about having that is, like, you know, you do your tough day or whatever, you finish your day, you close down your laptop, and then you can go and meet some fellow colleagues, you know, and feel supported and, you know, talk it out. And I think that's the biggest thing about culture, is create an environment where people can come together. So we can give our people the tools to be exceptional, and we can create the environment with everyone that has alluded to, like exceptional training. And now recently we found obviously the impact of, you know, very personable people over the last number of kind of months, 20 months, is that we crave interaction. Yes, we can consult, you know, virtually like this, and quite successfully in terms of, you know, the business and where we're at the moment, currently expanding and still growing. But we're, you know, emotionally intelligent people, and we crave that interaction. We crave togetherness. And we've obviously embarked on coming together again and reigniting some of our sports and social in a safe and kind of a very environmentally friendly manner, and with our hiking clubs, our running clubs, our golf clubs. We've had a spring day running event where we had a lot of the company. Our hiking group went out to Michaelisburg on Saturday and stopped off at the Black Horse Brewery on the way back for lunch. And, you know, that togetherness and the unity, I think that's the key thing about having a culture. You know, let's be honest, I don't think every company in the world or every job is going to have every day that's going to be ideal. You're going to say, wow, that was an amazing day, you know. But I think, you know, the tough days are what gets you through is the people, and the people who you can bounce off and, you know, go to support. So if you've got your mentor who's there, and obviously Monaco, we've got an active mentorship program, you know, you can phone up your mentor and get some advice, or you can, you know, chat to someone in one of the groups, you know. And I think that's the key thing about creating that environment where people can flourish and, you know, develop themselves. Great.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I never thought the word togetherness could really mean as much as it does AC. Yeah, it's a special thing, and I think people really appreciate it now more than ever.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for that. That's great. Now, the big question, and this is my one but that I often say to consultants, to candidates who are thinking the management consulting space, is the flexibility and life balance. That's one of the other sort of factors that people take into account. From my personal experience, I mean, it was quite ridiculous at times where I actually didn't go home for 2 days consecutively. And it eventually starts burning you out. And I know that some of the bigger consulting firms, I'm not dragging anyone through the mud, but some of those firms, they really do, they do demand huge hours all the time. I don't know who best equipped, Yaku or Patrick, whoever would like to answer, like what's the principle from a Monocle perspective on those extensive hours and working weekends and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I can take that. Patrick, you can jump in if you want. Graham, absolutely not institutionalized at Monaco. Right? So yes, there are sprints, like you said. Projects have deadlines, and when you near that deadline, things get a little bit more tense, and you work a little bit harder. I myself have spent a night or two at a bank in Johannesburg watching Borat movies, waiting for code to run. So it does happen, right? But we definitely do not encourage it. And if it happens on a sustained basis, then something's gone wrong. So either we've undersold or underestimated the amount of work, or the customer has changed scope, or whatever. But it's not encouraged. We actually, a couple of years ago, we ran a Grad recruitment campaign, and our slogan was, "It's not just about work." And we truly encourage people to be balanced individuals and to have lives outside of Monaco, and to get to exercise and to get to family and those kinds of stuff. So yes, some of these firms, and I've heard horror stories, do punt those big hours, but no, it's not something that we encourage.
Yeah, and you're right, Yaku. And I think it's finding the right balance, and we want, to create an environment where there's proper work-life balance. And yes, you're going to have, days that you work hard and, moments throughout the client deliverables. But I think the key thing is looking at, at the end of the day, have you done everything to the best of your ability? Have you performed just a successful level? Yes, have you achieved what you wanted to set out in the day? And if we get that from every one of our people, that's what makes us successful as a group going forward together, And the environment of the culture goes alongside that, and creating this environment where there is numerous events, not just through the sports clubs, but we've got many other events. We've got Mission Monocle, which focuses on our charitable side of the organization. We've got internal events that, we have coffee podcasts where we get to know our people, and it goes out Friday morning and people open up the Irish Coffee Podcast and have a coffee starting off the Friday to listen as to who this person is and outside of the work and environment and their hobbies and interests. We've got an internal communication channel through our Monocle Chronicle, which features a lot of our people, their exams, family kind of occasions in terms of births, and celebrating these togetherness. And I think that's the biggest thing about having that proper work-life balance. Yes, we work hard, we train hard as well and develop ourselves to be better consultants. But at the end of the day, you have to have a proper work-life balance. And I even find, if you look back at the last kind of the year, there's moments in that year where, you're in front of a laptop and you get to the Friday and you're punch drunk, And we encourage people to really get out and exercise. We've had virtual runs, we've had virtual cycles, we've different competitions. We want people just to be involved and get together in these events, whether it is virtually or whether it is together. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's importantly, my take with a lot of our candidates we chat to is especially at this early stage of your career, you won't progress far if you're not willing to work hard. But it needs to be sprints as opposed to a sustained sprint. And so I think if you're shying away from work, or you don't want to be working some long hours and on a project deadline, maybe consulting might not be your thing, but it just can't be every single week and every single day. And I really encourage guys, there's nothing wrong with working hard early on in your career. It really sets you up. Doesn't mean you have to work long hours all the time though.
Yeah.
Cool. I think business growth is something I want to chat to you about. And so just importantly, guys, we've chatted about Monocle specifically with regards to that flexibility and life balance. So please, if you are considering any sort of management consulting environment, make sure you're chatting to someone who's been in that business. Go and do your due diligence and find out firsthand what they think of it and what are the deadlines. So just a word of warning. pervasively across management consulting, just understand that sometimes there's a risk that you may get burnt out if you haven't done your due diligence beforehand. Remuneration, I'm just going to quickly touch on. It's probably in my space, I understand this best, but personally, I took a huge discount to my peer groups for the opportunity to be able to learn in a consulting space. It's something I decided on, and a lot of consulting firms don't like taking CAs on. They want to take someone straight out of university and train them up themselves. So I took the decision to take a discount initially, and you very quickly catch up to that peer group. Don't want to go into too much detail on this, but the reality is Monocle hire some of the best talent around, and we are the ones responsible for providing a lot of those exceptional quality CAs. And you don't get that without paying what market related is. And at an early stage in your career, market related is market related. But let's not get into too much. Sorry, I'll carry on.
And on that point, Graham, and a lot of our conversations we have with candidates is, and there's more and more opportunities. If we're looking at how the market is at the moment, I think that it's kind of the hottest it's been in a long time. A lot of opportunities, international exposure. Obviously Monaco, we got our UK and European offices in terms of that. But I think holistically, what I can say to candidates is you need to look at the bigger picture in terms of what are you going to get? Don't just look at what's the cost of company. Some candidates fall into that trap of, okay, this is a better package in terms of a cost of company, but really, you need to ask yourself, where will you be in 2 years' time? What is that company going to provide to me in terms of development? What will my profile look like in 2 to 5 years? Where can I be? How long is my career progression in terms of promotion? Am I going to be working remotely? Am I going to meet the people I work with? Am I going to form bonds? Am I going to form friendships? You can't just look at, as you said, the kind of the cost of company, and this is what I'm X against Y, and really look at organically what is the full package in its entirety and resonate. I always say to candidates, do your research, look at the likes of LinkedIn profiles, listen to podcasts. We've got a couple of podcasts on our LinkedIn page from Billy and a couple of our executives around the subject matter and what life at Monocle is truly like. And not just with Monocle, with other companies. If you want to go into that route, make sure you do your kind of research and look at, okay, this is for me. This is what resonates with me. This is the company's values. This is my values, and we're aligned, and then obviously move forward through that kind of.
Yeah, Patrick, exactly that. And that's why it's a factor. It can't be your only decision that you make.
Yeah.
I think personal growth continues to be the most important part at this stage of your career. The last factor is just business growth, like joining a big behemoth of a corporate where you may be looking for a 3% growth, 4% growth. For me, I don't get excited. I don't stay up at night getting excited about a business like that. I know that. Let's chat briefly about Monocle just quickly. I know you guys are on a huge growth rampage at the moment. Do you want to talk to that, Patrick or Yaku, whichever the two of you want to chat about?
Yeah, happy. So yes, Graham, we're on a fantastic growth trajectory. Sorry, a bit of a tongue twister there. I joined Monocle, to give you guys an idea. I joined Monocle in 2006 when there was probably about 6 people employed at Monocle. Currently, we're at 230. So if you do the math, that's an exceptional growth rate. And the growth just keeps on coming. Currently, we are short on the supply side. We need more people to work at Monocle, so we're turning away projects and work at the moment because we just don't have enough consultants working for us. We've opened up a recent office in the Netherlands. We've had our office in the UK for a while, which we've got renewed focus in, and we think that those markets will also grow significantly over the next couple of years. We've spent a large amount of money on marketing and have allocated a large amount of budget to marketing in the next year as well. So yeah, for us, we're growing rapidly, controlled growth, but rapidly.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think you're right, Yaku. Like it's looking at it organically, when I joined Monocle 5.5 years ago, we were 70 odd people, and to get from 5.5 years ago to where we are today, and a lot of people ask me in interviews, like, how come Monocle is looking to hire so aggressively, and does that demand really exist? And I have to keep saying to them, yes, it does, because we kind of have created that demand. Our people have created that demand. You know, we've got incredibly talented people. It comes back to that, you know, them wanting to develop themselves and, you know, train harder. And, you know, the panel has alluded to, you know, not just the technical skills, but having the subject matter as well, and marrying the two of those together. And I think that's the biggest thing. We've got obviously a very hands-on senior executive team who work extremely hard. And not just a senior executive throughout, you know, and we've got a couple of our CAs who are featured here tonight, but we've got many other CAs in the business who have joined and, you know, being part of that organic growth. And I think the key thing is to do it sustainable. And the nice thing that I always enjoy, and I say this to people in interviews, is I joined from a very large organization to Monaco, where, you know, you come from a big organization to a smaller and you think, wow, this is a little bit different, you know. But I don't think I could go back to ever into a larger organization again, because, you know, we're at a nice size now with 200 and odd people, and you get to know everyone, you know, and we get to action things accordingly, and we work hard and move things on very quickly. You know, I think that's the key to our growth and success.
Yeah, that's awesome. Karava, it's back to you. You've been quiet in the corner there. I'm going to try and pick on you for a second or two. And it'll probably go to Melissa and Clanca afterwards, guys, but there are a whole bunch of people sitting on this webinar who have been in a very similar situation to you guys of your past. So how would they identify themselves as being a good potential candidate for a management consultant role?
Wow. I'd say that you should be able to communicate quite well, because you're working with the client and their stakeholders, and then you have your Monaco managers that you're also working with. So being able to communicate the work and the expectations and quite well across, you know, the different people that you're working with is quite important. I think a person who also keeps a very flexible mindset, so not just thinking like a CA, being able to then almost understand what the IT then looks like, what the system looks like. So being able to put on different hats and provide different solutions, I think that's also an ideal candidate. And I think a person who's just really confident in their abilities to deliver on something, even if you don't have the skills, but knowing that you'll be able to get those skills is quite important. So I think if you can identify those things in yourself, then I think you would make a great consultant.
Thanks, Karava. Melissa, anything else? And maybe you can identify what it's not. So if you're a person out there that is a certain personality, maybe management consulting isn't that, or do you want to tell us what you think it is?
Sure. I mean, I think Karava covered quite a lot of it, but yeah, that ability to communicate and talk to stakeholders is vital. Communicate within your team and work with different people. You know, some people may be strong in one area but lacking in another, and that ability to kind of help out and work together really well.
Cool.
And problem solving, I mean, that is a huge part of the job. So if you enjoy like being faced with an issue and really picking that apart and diving deep into that, if that appeals to you, I think that this is for you. In terms of, you know, if you like to arrive at work, do your job, and then leave, and that's your 8 to 5, and, you know, you're doing the same thing and your responsibilities kind of end there, then maybe it's not the right thing for you. Things are changing. You've got to stay flexible. You know, something might land on your plate that you need to do more urgently. So being able to kind of manage your time and that kind of thing is important. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Anything else in Clatler?
I think the only thing that I would add to that is, if you are somebody who is actually willing to explore, right, and understand that there's more to work than just coming in and doing your job and leaving, as Melissa had said. If you are somebody that is willing to learn and understand that there's gonna be tough days, there's gonna be days that don't go particularly well, but you are still somebody who wants to build those relationships. You're still somebody that wants to be part of a certain culture that emphasizes excellence, a culture that's supportive, a culture where the knowledge is accessible and you're able to actually, you know, self-actualize. I think it could be for you. What it's not it's a day-to-day come in, do exactly the same things. Definitely not that. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. It's just maybe to say that maybe it's just not for you. But I would say that early on in your career, and looking back right now, for me, it's probably the best decision that I made, because I think, to echo Yaku's point, like if I think of the person that I was a couple of years ago and the person that I am now and what I know and the relationships that I've built, I wouldn't trade that for anything. And it's simply because it is, again, that understanding and taking the time to do your research and understand yourself, your strengths, what you're into, what is it that you want to achieve, what is achievable, what's the reality of your goal, and how do you get from point A to point B is very important. So yeah.
Yeah, I think to just add, I think you've touched on it, but we often see when we do analysis in a bank, and I've seen it during my audit years as well, you ask somebody, why are you doing it this way? And they would say, well, because that's what I've been taught, or that's what my predecessor did, and I'm just carrying on with this process. That's not what we do, right? We are absolutely trained to be critical thinkers and to question what's happening and whether or not there's a better way to do it. And if there is, to pursue that better way at all costs. So that is the sort of personality that's needed. Not the one who's relaxed and taking things as it comes.
My mind goes back to just repeating last year's audit strategy and just repeating what was done the year before.
100%. That's exactly what I'm referring to. That's where my fascination with this actually started. Yeah.
Awesome. Patrick, a tricky question here. So guys, thanks. I know we're overrunning slightly. Thanks for all the participants staying on here. Really appreciate it. We'll answer some of your questions directly after this. Now, just a lot of guys sitting on here, it's probably the other side of the question I asked Melissa and Tantla and Karabo, but all three of these panelists have had some sort of financial services experience. They're obviously all CAs. Is that a requirement? Does every person on the attendee list here need to have some sort of financial service experience? And do you guys only hire CAs, and is it a CA thing?
That's a great question, Graham. Yeah, look, firstly, we get asked that question a lot. Why do we hire CAs? You know, obviously we hire a number of different backgrounds. You know, and I think the beauty of hiring a CA is, if you look at the audit environment, and you know, consulting simulates that to a certain degree. You know, you move from audit to audit, from client to client, and you know, you work with some clients who you really love working with, and some who are a bit demanding, and you know, but you learn from it, you move on. And you know, I think the good fit for a CA is, you know, consulting does fit into that. And I think the biggest picture is, you know, looking at yourself over the course of not just now in the kind of present, you know, it's the future kind of tense. Okay, where will I be in that 3 to 5 year period as a consultant? You know, where will I grow? And, you know, the great thing about Monocle is, you know, we've got no set division. So you're not going to be divisionalized into, you know, this kind of the risk area or the data area like that. We're looking for people to get that exposure. So you'll move from client to client, project, and grow exponentially over the course of your career. You know, I think transitioning in can be difficult if you haven't had exposure to, you know, financial services. But it's not, you know, it's not impossible. We've had CAs who've joined, and I think the key thing is looking at the right attitude. You know, obviously you can see from the panelists, you know, we're looking for people who are high emotional, intelligent people, you know, have got personalities, and who want to learn and develop themselves, you know. And I think that's the key thing in making that transition. And, you know, to Jako's point, you know, to have a fairly good understanding of how the bank works and, you know, the balance sheet, and if you don't, you want to have a passion for actually exploring that. You know, I always say to people, you know, follow your passion. If your passion is in finance and banking, and, you know, Monocle is a good place to do that. If it lies elsewhere, you know, in a different sector, then follow that passion. You know, I think that's the key thing, passion and people together. That's what will get you through on a day-to-day basis, you know.
Great, thanks. Patrick, I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to hand over to you to deal with some of the Q&As. One question I do see coming up a couple of times here, guys, is whether this is going to be recorded. It is recorded, and we will send it on to you guys afterwards if you'd like to go through it again. Just my last question, I think I'm just going to throw it in Tantla. If you could give the attendees on this one piece of advice. So I suppose just picture that it's a young CA. maybe 1 or 2 years post articles, just with regards to management consulting, like what advice would you give them?
That's a very good one, and I think I'm actually thinking of it. If what advice would I have wanted? I think number one, don't be afraid of a challenge. Don't look for some sort of repetition in outcomes. Understand that things don't always go the same way. And life is not meant to be like that. It's supposed to be exploring. It's supposed to be exploring. It's supposed to be a journey. You're supposed to be doing things that challenge you. You're supposed to be putting yourself in positions where you're learning something new constantly. You're supposed to be putting yourself in a position where you are dealing with different people at different times. You're supposed to be learning skills that equip you for the future. You're supposed to be building up your confidence. You're supposed to be building relationships with people around you and picking a career. Remember, you're going to be doing this every single day for a couple of years, using the only thing that you really have, which is time. So you really want to think about how that translates into meaning for yourself. So the decision of where to work is not just about how much you're going to make. It's about the person you're going to be becoming and the person you're constantly becoming. So my advice to you is think about it. Explore what's out there. Understand yourself. Understand what opportunities are out there. CA is just the key. It's not the door, right? It's the key that opens the door, but there's a whole world out there. And if you apply your mind, you'll realize that management consulting is probably, something that you could explore because of what we've touched on. And if it's not the end of the world. You could find that, you could be like me, you could have started somewhere else and transition, but don't stop learning, don't stop questioning, don't stop trying to develop yourself and really adding value to the people around you and your clients. So yeah, good luck to everyone. And we hope to see you in the future. We hope to get a lot of people showing interest in this beautiful profession of ours that we have dedicated a better part of our careers to. Yeah, so that's sort of it, Graham.
Yes, I'm very glad I asked you that question. I feel like I'm a better person because I heard that answer. I just take that clip and post it on YouTube, and I'm going to get some huge hits out of that. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. A lot of people are asking about how and what to do if you are interested in exploring the opportunity, specifically at Monocle. Get hold of us, guys. We are here to help. I think Patrick mentioned there'll be an email address, lucy@bluerecruiting.co.za. We'll post that. We'll also get an email after this following up on who to get hold of. We are sort of the trusted recruiters that Monocle have entrusted us with accessing the best CAs around. So get in touch with us and we'll help you get introduced to Monocle and put you into the right channels. But we'll make sure that gets circulated to you afterwards. So Patrick, over to you if you can field some of those questions, please.
Yeah, looking at the questions there, Graham, a lot of questions around, firstly about SQL and coding and different things and different languages that we use. So yeah, look, SQL is very proficient, and it's not just SQL. Looking at a lot of technical skills at Monocle, and to Jako's point earlier, we honestly believe we've got two world-class trainers in terms of Mike and Andre who deliver, and not just SQL, a lot of things in terms of, Power BI and, Power Platforms, Azure, AWS. We've recently rolled out, very much thank you to Mike, a new business analysis course, and that, the company is continually upskilling themselves in. So it's not just all about the technical stuff. It's about kind of, outlining your business knowledge as well, and your skills and tools to do that. And, some good news for all the attendees on the webinar tonight. The very last slide that we're going to share, there is a QR code in there, and we've promised anyone who attended tonight they would receive specialist SQL training by our trainers, and that will be hosted on a separate evening. And to sign up and register to that, you basically will just use your camera on your phone, and that will bring you in to sign up, and then we'll be in touch with you to schedule the 2-hour SQL introduction to SQL training.
Can I be a part of that, Patrick?
Yeah, look, definitely, Greg. We'll get you involved. I might even give it a go myself. So I think the key thing is, and that's the beauty about it, and I think that's a credit to our trainers. We've taken people who have never looked at SQL codes before and don't even have to do it. And, you know, intensive training after a number of kind of sessions, they're able to do it, you know. So it's formally done through a classroom environment. And, you know, it's a great way of developing people.
Yeah,
so that tends to go ahead.
Just to also say, I think there's a lot of uncertainty amongst new CAs as to what is SQL and will I be able to master it. This is a great place to come and have a look and see for yourself how technical it is, and you'll be amazed at how easy it is to read it and to start to understand it. So I think it's a great place to come and kick the tires.
Yeah, 100%, Jakub. Some other questions in it, you know, where do you apply? Graham's already addressed that, but look, you know, I think the biggest thing is do your research, you know, check out the likes of the Monaco website, and we'll have the details on how to apply, you know, careers@monaco.co.za, get in touch with Blue Recruiting. We are currently hiring. We've been hiring throughout this year, to be honest, and, you know, goes to the point of Jakub's, you know, the business growth, you know, we can proudly say that even during the last 2 years, you know, we've been able to be fortunate enough to pay bonuses to our people as well. So, you know, currently expanding and growing organically, but we want the right people, you know, and I think Jakub's point is very relevant. Come to the process and find out if you're the right person, you know, if you're keen to get into consulting. We'll take you through the process. There's a couple of stages, but very much is about, you know, sorting out that fit, and then we'll take you through the process once you apply. Some other questions that are coming in on the Q&A. I've just lost the Q&A on my side. Graham, have you got the Q&A?
I do. Can you not see it?
It's gone there now from my screen.
Okay, I can ask a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I see is Sema qualification enough to start a career with Monaco?
Who wants to take that?
Anyone?
Yeah, you're on mute there.
Sorry, yes, it is. A Sema qualification is definitely a relevant qualification for us. Again, we're not just looking for CAs. We're hiring very, very broadly. Mathematicians, statisticians, engineers, people with quant backgrounds, people with we've got a scientist that we've just recently hired. So that we're hiring broadly. Sema is one of them. CA is one of them.
Cool.
Yeah. One of the questions there, Jakub, is you know, in terms of the banking environment, you know, how broad does Monaco kind of cover, you know, the exposure? Can we share examples of the banks that Monaco work with?
Yeah, look, we work with all the big four banks. We work with some of the smaller banks as well. We work with many of the biggest insurers. We work with major banks in the UK, major insurers in the UK. We've got an enormous bank that we work with in the Netherlands. So yeah, the exposure is quite broad. I think in South Africa, we are the most trusted management consulting firm in this space, in sort of this change space in finance, risk, treasury, compliance. So yeah, the exposure is broad, and the coverage is broad.
Yeah, and that goes to another question here, you know, from one of the attendees, that they've heard recently going into consulting can limit your opportunities to branching out your career paths, e.g. to becoming a financial manager. Anyone on the panel, what is their opinion on this, and would management consulting be an exception?
So I can
okay.
It sounds like you go.
Well, it speaks to what we mentioned earlier, right? In terms of what career path are you actually looking for? I think when you're very early on in your career, you can't be thinking about, you know, 5 different options that a CA can follow. You know, you should be almost doing exactly what we sort of discussed here. And once you've found what you want to apply yourself, dedicate some time to it. I can guarantee you that you're not going to go into management consulting and after 2 years know exactly what it is you want. You must be able to understand that things take time. Now, is it going to be limiting? Not necessarily. You know, people branch out from management consulting and go into different roles all the time. We see it. So it's not limiting in any way. In fact, I'd say it's quite the opposite, you know, because you're living with actually hard skills that are actually applicable to various parts in different companies.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Jab?
Yeah, I think I want to add to this is that we're looking at motive very carefully when we hire, right? So what we probably are not looking for is somebody who's actually, they like financial management. They might want to dip their toe a little bit in the management consulting and see what it is and go. I think, Patrick, you said it earlier, is follow your passion. If you have a passion for banking, if you have a passion for consulting, if you don't want to be the financial manager or the auditor, then come, right? But the key thing is that people have joined Monocle and then a year or two later decide, management consulting is not for me. That happens, CAs. And they've moved back into financial management roles. It's absolutely not impossible. But I think what I would like to encourage is those that want to join Monocle must be certain that they want something other than financial management. They want something more challenging.
Yeah, just from my experience, just seeing a lot in the market, guys, is your first or second job out of being a newly qualified CA, it's not a marriage. It's sometimes you realize you try it and give it your all, and you may realize, actually, I love financial management, and that's great. And to answer the question, it doesn't limit your opportunity. If anything, it enhances it. I agree with Nklanhla, but like, try stuff, and you can work out what you like and what you don't like empirically. You don't have to work this out theoretically before you've given it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, another question is coming in just around the support that is provided from Monocle for a newly qualified CA when starting their career and being placed on their first project. I think, you know, Nklanhla, what you said is resonating with people, you know, mentioned coding as one of your second projects. But I think on that support, you know, and the transition, you know, our training is set up to make sure that you do feel supported, you know. We've got hands-on training, and when it comes to, you know, our CA program, it involves a number of stakeholders in the business. You know, we've got obviously just, you know, technical training, but not just limited to that. Our CEO, David, is very hands-on in terms of our training. He trains, you know, a number of fundamentals of banking kind of programs to graduate programs, our CA people. So it is a good transition over, you know, if you're prepared to put in that hard work and, you know, be part of something in terms of developing yourself, we will provide the support and the tools to make you exceptional. And I think that's the key thing, you know, is applying.
Yeah, also just around the support, Patrick, we've put in very strong structures internally on our clients and our projects. We don't send somebody out into the wild and let the wolves bite at the heels. I mean, we've got executives like Nklanhla owning clients. We've got managers, senior managers, principals owning groups of projects. We've got senior people on projects overseeing. So even if you might be working on a deliverable by yourself, you still have a very clear reporting structure very close to you to oversee what you do and provide advice and guidance.
Yeah, and the question that's just coming in now that resonates with that is like, what attributes and skills do you look for in a candidate? And, you know, having interviewed many candidates, I think I interviewed nearly most of the panel apart from Yaku, but in terms of joining Monocle, you know, yes, we don't look for, you know, the out and out, you know, you mustn't have 7 or 8 distinctions in a trick type of people. Yes, we want people with, you know, attitude, and I mean good attitude, you know, high emotional intelligence, personalities, but who want to work hard and be part of, you know, the togetherness that we create, you know, get involved in the things that we do, you know, the sports and social, the events. You know, we don't just have that. We've got family days that we've run before COVID, and they're probably one of my favorite events where you get to bring, you know, I get to bring my kids along and, you know, they meet my colleagues at Monocle. And obviously haven't been able to do that in the last year, but it's something that we'll definitely be doing next year, you know. But, you know, CV advice, another question that's come in, speak to people. You know, speak to the guys at Blue Recruiting. They've seen thousands and thousands of CVs. They could give you any advice you want in a CV. You know, you look at it. What we do is we obviously, you know, look at them in terms of, you know, what candidates they select and put forward to us and, you know, put into our process. And they know exactly the type of candidate that will fit well in Monocle and have placed a number of candidates over the last, while at Monocle. So they've got a very good idea as to the type of roles that we have and the type of people that we look for. But very much it's down to the person, the attitude, and someone who just wants to develop themselves, you know.
And Patrick, just a quick question that's come up a couple of times as well as, I mean, last year's APC was a stinker. Guys who didn't pass APC last year, could they be taken into consideration?
Yeah, look, and a question that it's probably a couple of other people have said it, you know, we don't just hire CAs, you know, we hire people in the market. We hire consultants, you know, we hire people who come straight out of university with chemical engineering degrees, you know, IT degrees, economics. You know, I think that's the beauty of consulting when it comes down to having the right person and the right aptitude and, you know, the passion. Then you can learn the rest, you know. I'd never say no to a candidate or you say, no, you must have this certain set kind of criteria in terms of anything that we do. I think the key thing is obviously we've got a process in place. One is you'd have to do, you know, an assessment test, and that gives us a great idea as to how strong you are in terms of analytically skilled, and, you know, how you don't just get caught up in a certain area of the assessment, that you can actually work through it. And it kind of simulates, you know, working environment, to be honest, and your ability to overcome these obstacles. And then obviously get into process and meet our executives. Our executives, you know, will meet you and they'll tell you and explain more about the type of work we do, the projects, the business. And it gives you an understanding as to, okay, well, that's actually exactly what I'm looking for. Or they'll paint a picture to say, well, maybe it's not for me, you know. I think that's the key thing. Apply to these companies, not just Monaco, apply to companies that you want to get into. I think that's the key thing. Yeah, look, I think it's covered most of the questions in terms of, you know, overall, Graham.
Cool. We'll probably answer some of those questions afterwards if you want. And when we send you the feedback, guys, we'll try and include some of those questions we may not have addressed, just in the follow-up email to everyone who has attended. But yeah, thank you very much. Just from a blue recruiting point of view, thanks to all the Monocle guys for attending. It's so good to hear firsthand from people who actually do this on a day-to-day basis, talking about what it is, like what it's all about. And I think everyone who attended today, I think we'll get a lot more clarity of what management consulting is all about and what to look for in a management consulting firm. Just from our blue recruiting point of view, so Monocle is particularly selective. They don't get to where they are today without hiring the best of the best. So it is a stringent recruitment process. So just understand that is going to be a challenge. But you know that if you get through, you know you've ticked all the boxes, you've come with the right attitude, and you've got the right credentials. So yeah, if Monocle specifically, it is a selective place, but once you're there, you'll see the caliber of people that we've got on the panel. It's a good place to be. But yeah, thanks again. Thanks for your time, everyone. We really appreciate it. And we'll follow up with an email.
Yeah, thank you, Graham, from our side. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody that's joined.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Blue Recruiting. Thank you, panel. And thanks, everyone who tuned in to listen. Really appreciate everyone's time.
Fantastic. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to use your camera on your phone and register for the SQL Introduction course hosted by our internal trainers at Monocle. The details are there, you know, obviously to get in touch with Blue Recruiting or Monocle in terms of careers at Monocle. And yeah, look, I think the key thing is, you know, as Yaku says, come and see if consulting is for you. You know, the only way to do it is to find out through yourself. Have a great evening. Stay safe, everyone. And hopefully see you a bit further down the line in one of our processes. Bye-bye.